Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Whitney Van Laningham, and episode 7 of She-Hulk just gave us potentially our first physical look at MCU vampires with the introduction of Saracen. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm stuck on the fact that for a vampire, this dude seems pretty chill out in the daylight. Is Saracen truly just a vampire wannabe like Blonsky suggests? Or could he truly be a bloodsucker of the damned? It's almost Halloween, baby, and I have a creature feature theory that might set the tone for next year's highly anticipated Blade outing. In episode 7 of She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, Jen is introduced to a handful of D-list supervillains from the comics. After getting trapped in Emil Blonsky's Summer Twilight's wellness retreat without any cell service, she spends a good majority of the episode with Manbull, El Aguila, Wrecker, and the Porcupine. But Terrence Clow's gothic Saracen was truly the most unexpected addition to the MCU. As surprised as I was to see a potential vampire in the flesh, this isn't the first mention of vampires in the MCU. Aside from that Blade reveal at the end of Eternals, and Kingo joking that his assistant initially thought he was an immortal Night Thing, we've heard joking mentions of vampires in WandaVision, Thor Ragnarok, and even Loki's Time Variance Authority called them out. It was only a matter of time before they showed up on screen. In the comics, there are two characters that go by the alias Saracen, a merc who tussles with the Punisher, and a 90s Blade villain who is only in 3 comics. Vampire Saracen is real old. He's one of the first vampires to exist, making him part of a class of vampires known as the Ancient. Saracen's comic history amounts to mostly summoning the demonic Reaper to hunt down Blade, although he himself never actually battles the vampire hunter on page. It's pretty clear that the Saracen in She-Hulk is mostly a complete reimagination of the character. But I don't know, I think that his name alone suggests that TV Saracen could be an actual vampire. Saracen's appearance makes confirming that fact a little murky. He says he craves blood multiple times, but his ability to stand unprotected in the daylight proves that he isn't inhibited by one of the greatest downsides to being vampiric. Not everyone sparkles in the sun like Edward Cullen, okay? Some of them have to carry around little umbrellas and stay away from garlic bread on pizza night. Being able to withstand UV rays is unheard of for true pure-blooded vampires, and Blade is the only MCU vamp who has this distinction. Blade's status as a daywalker is a signature part of his character, so I find it unlikely that other daywalkers would be established in the MCU canon before Blade even has a proper appearance. I did see some speculation online that Saracen is Blade's son, in part due to his UV immunity, and in part due to Saracen's comments about his father wanting his blood.
Or he wanted your blood.
No, not that.
Man, stop talking about blood. Not everybody's your dad.
Don't talk about my dad.
While this certainly is an interesting theory, I don't think that it's the case. As far as the source material goes, Blade's only confirmed child is his daughter Brielle, and she's a fairly recent addition to comic canon. Also, unless the MCU is introducing an aged Blade who's been part vampire for decades, I don't see him having a son in his undead 30s.
There are times when I'm up so late that it cycles back to early, and I have a hard time sleeping with rosy-fingered Dawn creeping into my bedroom. It used to be the case that when that would happen, I'd grab a Blue Block's blackout sleep mask, but now Blue Blocks has become Bon Charge, so I grab a Bon Charge sleep mask instead. I know it sounds weird to say I'm bad at sleeping, but I am. Something super horrifying about me is that I sleep with my eyes open. But if I'm using Bon Charge's sleep mask, that doesn't matter. It blocks out 100% of incoming light. It's very soft and has adjustable eye cups and an adjustable strap for the perfect fit. It works for belly, side, and back sleepers. Okay. It's super comfortable, and I can confirm that I can see absolutely nothing. If I were napping, this would be perfect. Yay, now I can see again. Bon Charge ships worldwide and have other great products like low blue light bulbs, red light therapy devices, and blue light glasses. Go to boncharge.com/newrockstars and use coupon code NEWROCKSTARS to save 20%. That's boncharg.com/newrockstars and use coupon code NEWROCKSTARS to save 20%.
So, how could Saracen be true to his comic namesake and be a vampire while still being able to soak up the sun? Well, he could be a pseudo-vampire, sort of like the acclaimed and highly revered blockbuster megastar Morbius. And his vampire powers could come from a non-magical source that prevents him from facing the side effects of his vampire curse. Additionally, it's possible that he had vampiric powers but lost them. Buckle up though, Lestat, because I got a wild theory that Saracen is a real vampire, entering Blonsky's retreat in the aftermath of the events of Multiverse of Madness. You see, in Marvel Comics lore, the origins of vampirism date back to 18,500 BC, back when Atlantis was still above sea level. During this period in Atlantis, a group of sorcerers known as the Darkholders practiced the dark arts of Cthon. Yep, the very same Cthon that corrupted the Scarlet Witch with the Darkhold. One of the Darkholders, Varnia, became the first vampire lord in history, and all pure-blood vampires in Marvel descend from him. This connection and link to the Darkhold is not only where all Marvel vampires get their powers, but it's also where these creatures of the night get their their weaknesses. And this Darkhold vampire connection isn't just dated lore either. Last year, there was a whole Darkhold comic miniseries that touched on the connection between Chthon and the vampires. Because Marvel vampires are so intrinsically tied to the Darkhold, it's interesting that Blade is being introduced into the MCU after the Scarlet Witch deleted the Darkhold from the multiverse. Could Saracen potentially be a smoking gun that hints towards Wanda not only eliminating the Darkhold, but actually erasing its influence from reality? Did we just get a No More Mutants moment, but for vampires and not even know it? What if the namesake Saracen is actually important because that character has somehow been cosmically altered? Imagine if, previous to Multiverse of Madness, MCU Saracen was more in line with his comic counterpart, an ancient, evil, pure-blooded vampire. What if Wanda House of V'd vampires and other influences of the Darkhold from the multiverse when she took down Mount Wundagore? I think it's entirely possible that he suddenly lost his vampiric curse in that moment, and for the first time in millennia, ceased his unquenchable bloodthirst. This could explain why he needed to go to bad guy rehab. Now that he isn't physically dependent on drinking blood, he's questioning his humanity and working towards deprogramming his blood-drinking habit formed over thousands of years. He still claims that he's a vampire because that was his identity for 99.99999% of his life, but others might have a hard time believing it because he no longer can prove it to be true. If this is the case, then what does this mean for Blade in his upcoming movie? Seems a little unlikely that you can make a movie about a half-vampire hunter in a world where vampires have stopped existing. Well, not if 2023's Blade starts planting the seeds of Chthon's counter-offense to Wanda's Darkhold destruction play, setting up a potential plotline that interconnects Blade and the Midnight Suns with Wanda's widely presumed return. Saracen doesn't seem to have forgotten that he was a vampire in this scenario, so it's possible that other vampires will miss their powers and find a way to re-establish a connection with the dark force that made them immortal. Also, if Marvel really wants to dive into Blade's comic roots, they might even briefly explore the period of time before Blade was part vampire. Every good vampire movie's gotta have a flashback. Otherwise, how would we know that Edward Cullen almost died of the Spanish flu in 1918? Or that Tom Cruise's Lestat really wanted to be an actor before Magnus turned him against his will? Or that Stuart Townsend Lestat awoke Akasha, Queen of the Damned, with the pure power of rock and roll? Or that Jonathan Lipnicki had to destroy a cursed amulet to turn his buddy Rudolph and his family back into humans? Prior to Wesley Snipes' Blade movies, Comic Blade was just a vampire hunter with resistance to vampire bites. To make the character more in line with his version from the movie, the comics went full Morbin time on Blade to transform him into the badass daywalker we all know and love. Making Mahershala Ali's Blade a human turned half-vampire over the course of the film could be a small way to differentiate the MCU's Blade from the original films, similar to the way that the MCU approached their Tom Holland Spider-Man remakes. Coupled with my theory that Saracen lost his powers when the Darkhold took over, I really think that we could be dealing with the undead already, opening an unexpected doorway for Blade to enter. Worst comes to worst, I'm wrong, and Saracen is just another Twilight fangirl. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Whitney Puppy, follow New Rockstars, subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love, and thanks for watching. Bye!